Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission today, well, it's to really cut through the noise surrounding Malcolm X. We want to give you the essential insights, the details you need to truly grasp his transformation. We're aiming to move past that standard image, the fiery radical, and look at the specific, sometimes brutal forces that shaped his incredible evolution politically and intellectually.
Absolutely. And Malcolm X's life, it wasn't just politics. It was this constant process of self-reinvention, packed with extreme contradictions. So we're going to unpack the sources, find that essential context for his, dramatic transformation, starting right from his childhood, which was really marred by the exact threats he later fought against.
Okay, let's start right there at the beginning. His father, Earl Little, we know he was independent, a bit of a brawler, and a follower of Marcus Garvey's UNIA. So that means Malcolm was kind of steeped in radical Pan-Africanist ideas from day one, wasn't he?
Yeah, those radical roots were definitely there. But so is the radical danger. The family settled in a place where white supremacy wasn't, some abstract idea. Our sources really highlight how visible the Klan was. I mean, 25,000 followers at a public picnic nearby in 1925, that's not a distant threat at all.
And that threat became horrifyingly real. Malcolm was only 4 when their family home was burned down, November 8, 1929, intentionally. Just imagine. That fire was something he and his siblings apparently relived their whole lives.
And what's really crucial here is how the system reacted. Or failed to react. Instead of investigating the Klan, the police actually zeroed in on Earl Little. They chased rumors that he started the fire for the, $2,500 insurance policy. Unbelievable. Now, that charge was dropped, but they still got him for possessing an unregistered handgun. So that institutional suspicion, that scrutiny, it defined Malcolm's earliest ideas about justice.
Right. And after his father died, the whole family structure just crumbled. This period seemed to have left some deep psychological scars. He apparently showed these flashes of confidence, leadership even as a kid, playing Black Robin Hood, leading white kids in games. But then his mother, Louise's devastating breakdown happened.
Yeah, that collapse. It ended with her being institutionalized for 24 years. Kalamazoo State Hospital, starting around 1939. It fundamentally changed Malcolm's worldview. He chalked it up to her being jilted while pregnant. Watching his mother, who was intelligent and independent, just crumble like that, well, it etched this conviction into him, a conviction that women were inherently weak, unreliable. It really shaped his future relationships, and you see it later in his rigid adherence to male authority.
Such profound trauma. And that eventually leads him to Boston in 1940. He connects with his half-sister, Ella, described as imposing, jet-black-skinned, very independent herself. She really opened up a new world for him, didn't she? Urban life, jazz.
And critically, she exposed him to the class and ethnic divides within the Black community in Boston. He saw West Indians, Southerners with this aggressive entrepreneurial drive. It kind of echoed his father's Garveyite independence, Then the sources track his move to New York heaven, he called it, and Harlem was seventh heaven.
Right, working as sandwich Red on the Yankee Clipper train, but then hustling on the streets as just Red, selling marijuana, dating B. Karagulian, an Armenian dancer. This whole hustler phase. It wasn't just about crime, was it? It feels like an education in working the system, the margins. And that knowledge really came to a head with the draft in 43.
Oh, the 4F story is just, it's wild. It shows he already knew how to, weaponize white fear. He was this zoot-suited hustler, right? So, called up for the segregated military, he decides to play this role. Leans into the psychiatrist and whispers this plan. Organize them nigger soldiers, you dig? Steal us some guns and kill us crackers.
Wow. And he was immediately marked 4F, unfit for duty. That wasn't just dodging the draft. It showed this innate militant cleverness. It was there long before his formal political education.
But that hustler life came crashing down in 1946, arrested for taking a stolen watch to get it repaired. And the betrayal. B. Karagulian testified against him, but the racial element was just blatant. The judge explicitly said he had no business associating with white women. The sentence wasn't just about the watch. It was about race, plain and simple.
So after all that violence in his childhood, the chaos of the streets, he ends up in prison. And that brutal experience becomes the crucible for the next Malcolm. At first, pure rage. They called him Satan.
Right.
Cursing, pacing like a caged leopard, he said.
But that rage, it fueled this intense self-education. He didn't just read, he devoured history, philosophy, stories of resistance. He wasn't diving into theology yet. He was studying Kant, Nietzsche, Herodotus, but also Gandhi, people who challenged empires.
He even said later, I don't think anybody ever got more out of going to prison than I did. That's quite a statement. He shifted from, like, street smarts to understanding global resistance. That seems to be the point where his natural militancy found a disciplined intellectual outlet.
And that outlet, that framework, was provided by the Nation of Islam, the NOI. It offered the structure his family life lacked, and it helped bring his siblings together. Too many of them joined. Now, the NOI drew on older traditions, Garveyism, more science temple, sure, but Malcolm, he fully convinced himself of the divinity of the founder, W.D. Fard.
And once he committed, his dedication was apparently absolute,
Right.
known for being incredibly strict. Up at 5 a.m. for prayers, no smoking, no cursing, always punctual, eating just one meal a day. He saw himself as a prophet, didn't he? A fisher of men for the lost founds.
He was basically the engine driving the NOI's growth. Look at the numbers. Between 53 and 55, the membership quadrupled 1,200 to 6,000. Then it explodes tenfold, up to maybe 75,000 by 1961. Malcolm essentially built that small cult into a national force in under 8 years. Phenomenal growth.
And that growth gave him real power, which he tested in 1957, the Hinton incident. Johnson X. Hinton, a Muslim, badly beaten by police. Malcolm mobilizes this crowd. 4,000 people outside the 28th precinct in Harlem. Silent, disciplined. That's astonishing power.
Yeah, and the police reaction says it all. One officer, just stunned watching Malcolm dismiss the crowd with a wave, told a reporter, "No one man should have that much power." It showed Malcolm could command the streets, put authorities on notice like no other black leader at the time.
Okay, so he's at his peak. National influence, building this NOI machine. What causes that absolute loyalty to Elijah Muhammad to finally break?
It was the rot from within. Around 1959, Malcolm starts hearing about Muhammad's infidelities, secret affairs. Muhammad had fathered several children with young secretaries, and his justification. When you read about how David took another man's wife, I am that David. For Malcolm, this was a profound betrayal. He realized he'd basically been Muhammad's pimp, unwittingly bringing followers into the leader's orbit for exploitation.
He built his whole identity on this strict moral code, this discipline, only to find the foundation was corrupt. Wow.
But the absolute lowest point for that NOI ideology, it seems, came even before the final split, 1961. Still bound by NOI policy, Malcolm secretly met with the KKK in Atlanta. That's hard to even comprehend.
It truly was what the source calls an ugly dead end. He was there seeking help to buy land for segregation. He told the Klansmen he wanted complete segregation. And worst of all, claimed the Jew was behind the integration movement. That meeting just shows the moral and political dead end the NOI's rigid separatism forced him into. Just desperation and, frankly, delusion.
The final split, thankfully, perhaps wasn't far behind. His comments on the JFK assassination, the chickens come home to roost line, got him suspended in December '63. But his real ideological liberation seems to have come a few months later.
Yes, the Hajj. His pilgrimage in April 1964, that experience just completely upended his racial philosophy, as he put it. He described finding genuine brotherhood with thousands of people, all races, all colors. It shattered that narrow race-based doctrine of the NOI, and that led directly to embracing universalism, right? He started writing about his friends being Christians, Jews, agnostics, atheists, and significantly, some are even white, realizing all these different people were needed to make the human family complete.
Exactly. And his political evolution was immediate, structural. When he formed his new groups, he deliberately separated the political from the religious. You had the Muslim Mosque, Inc., the MMI, for spiritual matters. But the Organization of Afro-American Unity, the OAAU, was secular, focused on Pan-African human rights at the UN, not just civil rights. That was the crucial intellectual break from the power structure he himself had built.
But that very path, universalism, secular politics, it put him directly in the crosshairs, didn't it? His former ally, Louis X, soon to be Farrakhan, he published that piece in Muhammad Speaks in December '64. Such a man as Malcolm is worthy of death, just openly calling for it.
Yeah, the gloves were definitely off. The violence ramped up quickly. His home in Queens firebombed February 14th, 1965. The nation publicly blamed some property dispute, but we know now a former NOI member confirmed they were responsible. And they started targeting his loyalists, too. Benjamin 2X ambushed, Kenneth Morton beaten to death. It was getting incredibly dangerous.
So at February 21st, 1965, the day he was killed, Malcolm seemed resigned. He talked about how the men in his family didn't die naturally, and he made these fateful security decisions at the Audubon Ballroom, insisted no one be searched, told his man, except one, Reuben X. Francis, to be unarmed.
Was he accepting it, or just making it easier?
It's hard to say for sure, but the execution itself was brutally efficient. There's a disturbance, Wilbur McKinley arguing a smoke bomb.
Hmm.
Classic diversion tactics. The security team made that critical error. They moved towards the commotion, leaving Malcolm exposed on stage. Then Willie Bradley stepped up with the sawed-off shotgun, the kill shot. And the law enforcement response afterwards. It's chilling. We hear about Detective Jerry Fulcher, assigned to wiretap Malcolm. He initially thought Malcolm was a bad guy, but came to see him differently, concluding he wasn't an enemy of white people and that the NYPD needed to rethink its whole approach.
But the official response didn't rethink anything, did it? Witnesses described the first officers arriving at the Audubon, strolling, like they were patrolling a park. The ambulance was slow. There was this shocking sense of apathy, or maybe something else.
Yeah, the key takeaway seems to be that the NYPD quickly pushed this narrative. Just a feud between two black hate groups. Convenient. They arrested known NOI figures with violent histories, Butler, Johnson, Hare, but it allowed them to avoid looking too closely at potential informants, right? Like Reuben X. Francis, who was armed, or Gene Roberts, an undercover officer. Basically, contain the narrative, obscure the full picture.
Ultimately, Malcolm X's life story is just this powerful testament to relentless self-reinvention. By the end, he was, as one source puts it, further developed politically and intellectually than nearly all his followers. His final evolution embracing universalism, separating politics from sectarian religion, that's what made him a truly global figure. But it meant cutting ties completely with the very power structure he'd been instrumental in creating.
So you've heard it now. The sheer scale of forces working on him, that early racist violence, the internal corruption he uncovered, the incredible intellectual journey in prison, and constant intense surveillance. It's staggering what Malcolm X navigated in such a short life.
And we know those last years were defined by this conflict, this tension between the old world he dominated and the new global path he was forging. Which leaves us with a question, something for you to think about. Could a figure like Malcolm, with his immense intellectual and political drive, ever have successfully made that transition? Could he have moved on to that next stage, that vision of universal human rights, without completely severing himself from the very structures, religious, political, that first gave him his voice?